All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of the GGG Podcast. I'm Paul, and as always, I am joined by Phil. Phil, how are you feeling this week? How you doing? Did you have a good weekend?
I did. I had a very good weekend because I got to play D&D with some close friends, yourself included.
Oh, I'm close. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's right. You guys went on a journey. You did a lot of wonderful things. That's a lot of the gameplay that I've been up to this week was sort of just like setting up for that. And then also building magic decks. I've been ankle deep, waist deep in building Avengers themed decks because of the new secret layer that dropped. Because my two biggest problems collided, and that's Marvel and Magic. I hope that another thing that is named M doesn't come out soon because it will wreck me based on past knowledge. But it's been a good week for games outside of the video game space for me. What about for you, Paul?
I finished Dragon Age. I beat Dragon Age Veilguard. So I was happy about that. Apparently, I got a good ending, one of the better endings, but apparently there's a secret ending that I did not get, which I'm really ticked off about, because I did every quest that I had. And so maybe there was some quest that I didn't know where to find it or something like that. But every quest in my quest list I did before the final mission. And the game still ended very positively. And I won't do any... no spoilers. I can't say anything. But I was still a little disappointed with what happened. But overall, I had a really good time. And surprisingly, I beat it. And I was like... I still want to keep playing.
Interesting.
So I went ahead and I made a Kunari warrior and an elven rogue. And I don't know which of those I will play, or moving forward. But I just played through the intro because I wanted to experience the different gameplay style with that. That's probably been most of my gaming this week. I think I did boot up some Total War Warhammer 3 with a friend at some point, but aside from that has been my gaming. So I'm excited now that I've beaten Dragon Age. I'll probably still play it, but it does free me up to play other things. So that'll be nice.
We are sort of in I guess a semi. Drought is the wrong word, but we're in a slowing right now. For some reason, it's usually we have our big hits coming out now. Granted, Call of Duty came out, and if you were into those, that's maybe something to check out. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about some more releases coming up. But it does feel like this holiday season is a little slow. I think Assassin's Creed leaving took the wind out of my sails.
Totally,
bit,
It did leave a little bit of a vacuum that I feel other game companies were like, well, we don't want to compete with that. And now that it's not there, it's kind of a little strange. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how this holiday season shapes up. But we got a great show for you today. But before we get into everything, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our podcast over on YouTube. Please like and subscribe over there. And if you're listening to the audio only version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, follow us over there as well. Real quick, before we get into what's happening this week, we had somebody comment on one of our podcast episodes about Dragon Age a little while ago, and so I want to encourage people to comment and participate in the conversation, and so I want to read this comment that we have. So Alexios Grillis, I hope I'm saying that right, good sir, if you're still listening, or person, or ma'am, or whoever. He says the reason people don't complain about the woke things in Baldur's Gate 3 is because the story is so good, the dialogue is good, the characters are good, etc. That's the argument. Then the contrast with the state of Veilguard, which in comparison has poor writing, dialogue, characters, etc. So we were talking a lot about Dragon Age Veilguard last week, and people being upset about the wokeness, and particularly with like Tosh being a non-binary character in there and everything. And I see what this person is saying. I would just say, like, yeah, I totally agree. Like, the writing in Baldur's Gate is way better than Dragon Age Veilguard, like, hands down. I think like the big thing for me is the gameplay in Dragon Age Veilguard is way better than Baldur's Gate. And if you don't agree with that, that's just like, that's just like you being like a D&D. I want to play D&D on the computer.
I will say the combat in Baldur's Gate is like, it's very deep.
Yeah,
there's a lot you can like really express yourselves in like different ways, but as like an action game, it's so much easier to just like get in, play for a little while in Veilguard for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I do think like, I also think the story in Dragon Age was just fine. I think the older ones, like, people think that like Dragon Age 1, 2, and 3 were like a lot better because we were younger. Baldur's Gate I think is good, but like not all of Baldur's Gate is good. There's some stuff that's a little bit silly, and that's part of the charm of it. And I think I don't know. I do think there's also a kind of a positive thing with like the D&D crew, where like D&D is gay as hell. The whole community is like rainbow flagged up. We're out here enjoying this and telling stories in that space. So I think maybe people who would like write a D&D game are a little bit more comfortable or have more experience like storytelling from that perspective.
Sure.
And I do think maybe there is some sanitized or overly sanitized stuff in or like inability to tell the stories properly in
Dragon Age, in
a big EA game, because it's like, it's a lot more people being like, well, hold on, might that be offensive? Let's
yeah, I mean, so I think that's a great point, and I think another thing about that is that I think Dragon Age Veilguard is going for a wider market, and so and not just like in like what genres people like, but also in age, like the age range. Yeah, like I think a 12-year-old can play Dragon Age Veilguard. Do I think a 12-year-old is going to be into Baldur's Gate? Probably not. So
some 12-year-olds, but not
sure.
That.
I don't know.
For good reason.
I'm not trying to,
a lot of sex in Baldur's Gate. The 12-year-olds should not be looking.
All right,
but I think it's like Star Trek versus Star Wars in terms of like your fantasy. Mm-hmm. I think like we could. I think Dragon Age is a little bit closer to Star Wars. It's like a little bit simpler, good and evil. And Baldur's Gate is kind of like your Star Trekky, where parts of it are boring and weird, and you're like, why are we doing this story? But it's pretty well done overall.
Sure,
and for an older audience.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get into the game releases this week. So first game up was kind of a surprise release. We weren't expecting it to be talking about it this week, but Towers of Aghasba, or Aghasba is, I believe, how you pronounce it. So this was a game that was announced back in the Summer Games Fest, and it's released in early access, and it's come out on everything: Xbox, PlayStation, PC. I believe it's $30. I looked it up on Steam. And so it's a really beautiful game. It is a survival crafting action game, and it has a very unique, I want to say almost Monster Hunter like feel to it. Like, I don't know, maybe if Monster Hunter and Elden Ring had a survival crafting baby, obviously not with the challenge of Elden Ring, but yeah, it looks really cool. I'm really interested, and I think this would be a great game for me and my girlfriend to play if she's into it. But yeah, have you seen any footage of this game, Phil? Any first impressions?
I saw a trailer earlier today, actually, when I was looking at like just games that were coming out this week. It does look really interesting. The trailer that I saw, I'm watching the trailer from the launch one. The gameplay looked a little bit like it looked a little bit rough.
Clunky.
Just a little bit clunky and like
Yeah.
not precise. And that from like watching it is a weird thing to feel like you catch that because maybe it's all in my head. But I really do like the style quite a bit and like the sort of. I feel like it's Monster Hunter or Elden Ring meets kind of Avatar. You know, not Last
Sure.
Airbender.
Yeah.
The
I know
Champ,
what
you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, learning that it's a survival crafting game makes me more excited about it because that is, I think, like going to a whole new alien world, or like you do in the Valhalla one. What's that called? You're like learning the rules of this new world as you are learning as a player. It's pretty cool.
Right on. Very cool. And then we got another release, Stalker 2. I don't know that much about this game, to be honest, other than it looks kind of like Metro. Am I wrong in
I think
thinking
Metro
that?
is... No. I think that they are similar. I think Metro is the like kind of more direct version of Stalker, and Stalker is like a little bit more hands off. Doesn't really tell you what to do. That might be the case with the old one and not necessarily this new one, but Stalker is kind of like a cult classic. Like, it was a very difficult game. You would wander out into the wasteland and like, oh crap, I'm getting irradiated, what's going on? Sort of a grim dark tale from Chernobyl in a future where there's monsters, maybe, who knows.
Sure. Spooky. I mean, I feel like they should have gone for the October release. Do you think they missed out on kind of that seasonal spookiness, or is that not necessarily the vibe?
I mean, I feel like the seasonal spookiness would have been perfect for this, but I think they're going for a game that will be like a long-term cult classic game, so they just want to get people in on, oh, this game is good, but
Sure.
We'll see.
All right, right on. All right, well, with that, let's get into the news for this week. Unfortunately, Starfield making an appearance in the news. Unfortunately. Todd Howard was in the news last week, and I was very disciplined in trying not to include him, but it popped up again with more stuff, and so I have to talk about it now. But yeah, Starfield has added not a big update, but not a small one either. They've added a new vehicle to the game because everyone hated the vehicle that they put in the game the first time because it is useless. I know from personal
You can get
experience.
nowhere faster.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for giving me a vehicle that can't go over rocks when all of your planets have big rocks on them. So yeah, there is a new vehicle. It goes faster. It jumps farther. It has a gun on it. It's actually something you'd want to drive in this game. So that's good that they put it out. And the best part about it is that it is still free. You do not have to pay for this. And they also added a number of other updates, one of them being a cooking quest line that is also free. So if you wanted to there is a whole like cooking skill tree in the game that I really don't care about, but maybe this is a reason to care about the cooking skill tree, but I didn't. In that game, you get to a point where you have so much money. It's like, if I ever really wanted to eat food, which you don't actually have to do, I'll
just go out and get it,
or find it anywhere. So
that's true.
And lastly, they have, and this is actually, I think, a very important update, is they have allowed achievements while using the creation mods, which is something that I really feel like should have been included when creations first came out in the first place. One of the mods that I use in Starfield is to adjust the walk speed so that you actually walk at the speed of NPCs, because Because you know how when you're like following an NPC in usual games and like they're like going really slow and you jog a little bit and wait and jog a little bit and wait. In Starfield, if you try to walk with an NPC, your character actually walks slower than the NPC. So you can't keep up.
What a great game.
Yeah,
good.
and so I have a mod that just changes it so that I walk at the same speed as an NPC. And because I was using that mod, Starfield's like, no achievements, you're cheating. And so
Wow.
yeah.
Every time we talk about Starfield, I want to play it less.
So I'm happy for these updates. And most importantly, I'm happy that they are free. They also have put out some other, useless content like plushies that you can pay for, which I don't know why people would. But I guess I'm happy that it's continuing to get support, as Todd Howard brags about the fact that they've sold 15 million copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Great, Todd.
Does that count? Does Game Pass count? What it's like?
I mean, yeah, it probably counts as like downloads from Game Pass. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about that, but I'm trying to think. There was something else in this story that I believe that I am forgetting. I think they were overall they were reflecting on the lack of success with Shattered Space, and I think it's just because it was bad. Like I don't know what to. You didn't introduce anything really new. You added one map to the game and charged a full DLC price for it. So
yeah, I mean, if anything that we've seen from Bethesda is true about Bethesda lately, it's just that they are they really left it all on the field with Skyrim, I think, and then just slowly been giving us less and less every game. Just
have you seen, kind of out of left field here, Phil, have you seen any footage for the game Avowed? Obsidian is working on it.
Yeah, I have.
I think that's going to steal the next Elder Scrolls' lunch, because like all of this stuff with Starfield, I've really lost a lot of faith with Bethesda. And so I think if Obsidian can come in, and the irony is I think they're both owned by Microsoft. So, yeah.
Either way, Microsoft wins. But if Avowed is, well, if Avowed just sort of like is learned lessons that it seems to have learned from all of their games, we are in a better place. I mean, everyone's favorite game who've played it for the most part of the Fallout series is Fallout New Vegas, which was the Obsidian Fallout. Mm-hmm. I think they're a little bit more fearless and a little bit more committed to their ideas than we see over at Bethesda. And I think, honestly, Avowed is so much closer to coming out than Elder Scrolls 6. Like, I think maybe we'll see Elder Scrolls 6 after GTA 6. We might go an entire console generation without an Elder Scrolls game. Just lovely. Just great.
Didn't we go an entire console generation without an Elder Scrolls game? Didn't that already happen?
Yeah. So 2. We might see 2 without...
Oh, wow.
Jeez Louise, you guys. What's going on over there?
Exactly. What is going on? So we got some more news from Valve. Valve's been very much in the news this week. Some unfortunate news for Valve. So a Virginia senator, you heard me right, the government is getting involved. And so let me make sure I have this right. Yes, Virginia Senator Mark Warner is accusing Steam, Valve's, everybody knows Steam, of not regulating or censoring any hate speech related to like white supremacist or terrorist groups or anything like that. And we're not talking about like, people said some inappropriate language. We're actually talking about support for terrorist groups like ISIS. And Steam was also linked to a terror attack from a Turkish teenager who planned a knife attack with someone that he organized with on Steam. while wearing a neo-Nazi symbol. So kind of some heavy news in the podcast today, unfortunately. But yeah, I think this is something that probably needs to happen. I guess I'm surprised that Steam doesn't really regulate or censor a lot of stuff in general, but I think that's kind of Valve's vibe, is they are trying to stay out of any politics by any means. I know that a lot of in-game chat with a lot of games have censorship and regulations. Do you think that or Valve needs to make more of an effort in updating Steam with censorship?
Yeah, I think they probably need to have a division in the company that is on top of that, or part of their just whatever sort of server maintenance they do. They need to hire people that are specifically good at that, because you do really see some wild things in Steam forums. If you look at like discussions on games, you can see some pretty crazy stuff. And mod teams are only going to go so far, and mod teams are also like a lot of the times unpaid doing this stuff and can have their own biases as well, so they can be totally pro someone saying some very pro ISIS stuff. I think that it is pretty much the ubiquitous PC gaming space, and the fact that it isn't a Reddit or something that is known for its like communicative or social features means that people will slip in there and say some terrible, awful things because it is unmoderated. But I think it is so big, everyone's on there. Of course, you're going to see some crazy stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm not trying to say that Steam should like go overboard with any kind of censorship, but if they don't have any regulation in place, like it's 2024, and like I feel like every other single company has done so. So like I'm not, again, like I don't want them to go overboard with censorship. I want people to respect freedom of speech. But yeah, if people are planning terrorist attacks over Steam, I think maybe Valve, you should do something about that. So
yeah, wild place to do that. Let me just get out of here ahead of it. It'd be like, you know what? I could see maybe not thinking those people are serious because trying to do it on Steam for sure.
Sure, absolutely. All right, but continuing with our Valve storyline. So this week, we got a 20th anniversary Half-Life 2 documentary, and this is a 2-hour video that Valve has put out on YouTube. You can go and watch it for free right now if you're really interested in Half-Life or want to know what in the frick happened to Half-Life 3, although not a lot of the documentary is really about that. It's really about working on Half-Life 2. But we wanted to kind of talk about and focus like on what happened with Half-Life 3. Is it ever coming out? And no, it's not. It's never going to come out.
Not for us.
Yep. It's never going to come out. It's never going to happen. But we finally got some answers as to why it never come out. Or so we thought, because Gabe Newell, the person who owns Valve, and the employees that are still at Valve who had worked on Half-Life 3, Episode 3, gave kind of conflicting stories. So this was a little weird. So Gabe Newell said that he didn't want to just release Half-Life Episode 3 because he just wanted to move the story forward. He said, like, we didn't want to just move the story forward. We wanted to, like, add new features and, like, bring new things to the game and everything like that. And you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But then you watch the documentary that they put out, and other employees who had worked on the game said, yeah, we were working on just features for the game. We were working on the ice gun, and we were working on these new blob enemies, and we had environments done. We had based it in the Arctic, and we didn't really have any kind of story but we had a bunch of just levels that we needed to flesh out the story and chain it together because we didn't know how it connected. And so, which is like, okay, so the staff is saying we have all these features. Gabe is saying, oh, well, we didn't want to just move a story forward without any features. What is going on here, Phil? What?
Hey, everyone who's watching the podcast, go ahead and just earmuff it for a second. I'm going to speak directly to Gabe. Gabe, it's okay if you want to make another game. You don't have to lie about it. What's the story from Half-Life 2? Man with crowbar meets lady, and it doesn't work out. Like, the Half-Life doesn't need a crazy story. You really built a world in which we can all really derive what we want from it. You want to give us a story? You want to give us diegetic storytelling? That's what Portal's for. Half-Life, just let me do crazy things with physics and guns and like kind of assemble an adult story along there.
Yeah, and honestly, like the gun that they showed off in the documentary looked pretty cool. It was the ice gun, and so like what you could do with it is you could like shoot down a wall of ice in front of you to use as cover, and then still like shoot people with regular bullets. Or there was another feature where you could like do kind of an Iceman surfing thing, where you could use the ice gun to like platform. And so, yeah, this is really weird, but I think you're right on the money, Phil. I think they just didn't want to do the game because it sounds like these are conflicting excuses that would have been talked about in a meeting. So
they actually both like never got in on the same meeting, and that's why that's like it was just a mishandling of emails. No, I do think that there is I think that they have a machine. They have a couple of machines right now that just print money. So they're like, why should we work? Why should we make a new game? We have Dota. We have Steam. We have Valorant. I don't think Valorant is theirs. We have Dota and we have Steam.
Yeah.
We don't have to do anything anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is that this was really in the late 2000s when they would have been developing this. So I guess the moneymakers back then were like Team Fortress, Portal.
Yeah. But I think
kind of stuff.
I think Steam was already like on the rise. So like it was already everybody used to play games. Like I remember when I first downloaded Half-Life 2. Sorry. When I first downloaded Half-Life 2, I had like download Steam on my computer to play it.
That was the first game that required it, yeah.
Yeah, and that quickly became a pretty sizable internet store. And they made episode 2 and episode 3 how many years later? Like I think over the next 4 years it took to get those episodes.
I have no idea, to be honest, off the top of my head.
I just think they took enough time where they like things started ramping up for them enough to be like, we don't want to do anymore.
Right. Yeah. Or like Half-Life 2 was kind of the gold standard. It was put on this mountaintop, and so maybe they were like, I don't know if we can actually live up to it.
Totally. Yeah.
So, but it just kind of sucks that Half-Life 2 is really kind of a cliffhanger ending story-wise, and as usual, it's like we didn't actually know where we were going with that. So, cool. All right, well, we got to move on because we're pressed for time. But next up in the news, so Baldur's Gate 3's active players are actually going up right now, which is very weird, seeing how the game came out about, actually, I think it's like a year right on the money now. So Baldur's Gate 3 has been out for a year, and people have been attributing this to the mods that are coming out for the game, which is very, very cool. But yeah, apparently active players are up by 20% from last year, which is crazy. So I do have to say, I think that there are two things going on right now. I think one, you're seeing Baldur's Gate go on sale finally now that it's been out for a little bit. And two, I think that mods do get players back in the game, but they don't. I know from modding myself, like a lot of times when I mod, I'm like, I want to see what this is like. I figure out the mod, which usually takes an hour, and then and then I play it for 20 minutes and I'm like, that was fun, and then I move on. And so I think there is a lot of people like trying out different mods and not necessarily like playing the game, but that is totally a theory of mine. I could totally be wrong about that. Do you think people are doing full playthroughs with specific mods that's reinvigorating their love for Baldur's Gate, Phil?
I mean, I think I have two theories. I'll tell you the first one. Second one's a little bit, I think, more accurate. But my first theory is that after about a year, for me, if I'm going to replay a game, I wait about a year, and then when that itch starts back up, maybe I played Veilguard, and maybe it didn't really scratch the itch for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see Baldur's Gate sitting right there. I'm like, well, there's a World of Infinite Adventures. I still haven't done my Dark Urge run, and now there's these mods. I could, you know what? I'm gonna make a whole game and make it for my friends using the mod tools. I'm gonna make my own adventure and basically DM in Baldur's Gate. And then you play that, like you said, for a couple of hours. Granted, Baldur's Gate, like you could probably spend a good 10 hours and then be like, okay, I'm done. I know where this is going. But the most likely idea for me is that Baldur's Gate has most likely been bought by someone who lives at the Vatican at this point.
Yes.
That's where so yeah.
So let's talk about that.
I do think the Pope is playing, and I do think all of the angels in heaven as they probably listen to the Pope. It's like when Oprah puts one of her stickers on a book. Mm-hmm. For them, it's a game wreck that they're like, oh, we've been wanting to play it. We just had to make sure that the Pope could play it so that it was cool to play up here in heaven.
Right. Praise be.
Obviously.
Yeah. For those who haven't heard, there's been 2 copies sold at the Vatican of Baldur's Gate. So that is very interesting, given all the demons in that game. So that's fun. All right. Last up for the news, Phil, you found some Battlefield 6 news that I did not see flowing through the regular channels. What's happening with Battlefield?
Yeah, so this is from the Insider Gaming News Network. It is an exclusive, and this was published probably about 7 hours before we went live, so pretty recent. But the newest Battlefield game, Battlefield 6, is undergoing what they're calling the franchise's biggest pre-play playtest to ever appear in a Battlefront series. Basically, they want to make sure that they don't have the same launch that Battlefield 2042 did, because that was a big fart in an elevator.
It sucked.
To use. It sucked. It was rough. It was bad. And I thought, like, I always loved the original Battlefield 2042 for the PC back in the day. I had high hopes for this one, and man, what a big whiff. And this is coming from someone who used to love Battlefield. I know you used to play quite a bit of Battlefield as well, right, Paul?
I did. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you're doing play tests, and I'd be very curious if I could get involved in that somehow. So are there any details of like signups or anything like that, beta tests? Or?
Not that I've seen. I think they're using a lot of their like
in-house testers.
A lot of in-house testers. Apparently 4 different studios are working on the game.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It's DICE, Motive, Criterion, and Ripple Effect. So hopefully we'll have some really cool car crash effects, because Criterion from the Burnout series are deep in this game. I think it's important that they do this, and I think they're doing something smart now, which is seizing on kind of what I would somewhat categorize as a lull in specifically the multiplayer of Call of Duty. I feel like you hear people talking about Black Ops, and it's the single player that everyone is like really into the story, but the multiplayer is like, yeah, it's more Call of Duty. We kind of get it. It's got lateral movement, sure.
Here are the new broken mechanics. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, here's something that doesn't work. But what we haven't had in a while, and I'd say like a sort of gaming generation, is a massive scale fight, not where you're a battle royale, but where you were working on a team to capture like a specific area. Some of my favorite memories of Battlefield was like, we got to capture point D, and it really felt like a coordinated assault where it was like, okay, the jets are coming this way, maybe they'll bomb for us. Like it was all very hectic, and I think outside of battle royales, I haven't got a feeling of as much cooperation and like crazy things happening as with the old Battlefield games.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I think about it a little differently. I really think of like Battlefield and Call of Duty being like different genres of games at this point. Like, I get that they're first person shooters in war, but like that's Call of Duty is not a simulator. It's more of like a action movie, I feel like. And just also in how the maps are designed in Call of Duty, everything is tighter. And it's more, the maps are it's, I'm looking for a word and I can't quite find it. But
a little more claustrophobic. Have you ever played like paintball and like a paintball course?
Yes.
Where you've got like the little diamonds to hide behind. Yeah.
It feels more like a paint, and like that kind of gameplay is very fun. And I think the arcadiness of it is great, but I think Battlefield, where they've established of like what we do is we are all about like having this be realistic, like a realistic battle. But for me, where I've fallen off playing Battlefield is like, turns out being in a realistic war kind of isn't fun for me.
Yeah, it sucks, I guess.
Yeah, because
what is it good for?
I spawn, I run like 200 feet and then I get sniped, and like and so I really think the testing that they're talking about for Battlefield, that's going to really come into play with the maps, because I think that the maps of Battlefield have largely been atrocious over in 2042, and I don't really enjoy like every time they release a Battlefield trailer, they have this awesome, very choreographed trailer of like, oh, we're all going up in the elevator in the skyscraper, and then you try to play it in real life and it's like, wow, there's only one elevator or two elevators that go up to the skyscraper, and turns out if the other team is up there, as soon as the elevator doors open, they can kill you instantly. So it's not this beautiful thing that you showed in the trailer. It's just a bunch of chaos. And so I would like to see a Battlefield game that retains its realism, but tries to focus players in a specific direction, because I just see it as like a chaotic fustercluck, and yeah.
I'm with you there. I think the chaos for me is part of what I enjoy, where I was like, all right, I'm going to take a jet. I know that there's a point up there on that building. I'm going to take the jet. I'm going to fly it kind of at the building. I'm going to dive out. I'm going to shoot with my rocket launcher. Then I'm going to squirrel suit into the building. And I probably won't survive. But if I do, it's going to feel epic. And that is what that game mostly is like. All right, I died. Who can I spawn on? All right, you're alive. Here we go.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a very silly game. And they need to find that balance of like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I really love Battlefield, so I'm wishing it the best. I love Battlefield Bad Company 2. I love Battlefield 1. And I think part of the reason I really love Battlefield 1 is that the realism almost like regulated some of the game, because it was Battlefield 1. You're in World War 1, and so you don't have all of this super advanced technology. It's like the gun's just not that accurate. It's just not that accurate. Yeah. And so
oh no, there's a guy on a horse with a sword. It literally is one of the toughest enemies to take out. It's moving fast.
I love doing that. It's very satisfying. It's one of my favorite parts.
If there's anything you want to see in this game, like specifically, 'cause I know Battlefield Bad Company 2 had some of the best destructive environments.
Yes.
Especially for their time.
Yes.
That's something I'd love to see come back in a big way in Battlefield.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I love the destructibility. And I feel like in Bad Company 2, if you're playing Rush, which is the classic game mode, like you're trying to push to objective B, And it's just not working. It's like you could use the destructibility to create another path to objective B. And that is something that's really been lost with Battlefield. And like, I know like some things are destructible, but not really. And so I think they need to bring that back in a big way. That would be great. All right. Let's get into our main topic this week, something I'm very passionate about. I've already put out a video on our YouTube channel and our TikTok. Follow us over there as well. But the Game Awards have finally announced their nominees for Game of the Year and all of their other categories. Jeff Keighley came out and released a video and very clearly stated, I am not on the board who decides what games are nominated for specific categories, so please don't hate me on Twitter. Which, like, if I was in his position, I'd probably do the same, to be honest. But yes, so there's been a lot of controversy specifically of the Game of the Year nominees. So I will read them out loud real quick just for everyone to know. So Astrobot, Balaltro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantasio. So Phil, why am I upset about this list of games, do you think?
Well, based on the internet, I would say you're upset because one of the games is DLC and the other one is kind of a phone game. Is that it?
I'm actually not that mad at Balaltro.
Good.
Because every single year they put in an indie game into and it never wins usually. And so, like, I know Balaltro's not going to win Game of the Year. But it's a nod to the indie market, and it is a really fun game. I have played it. It's, you can buy it on Steam. It's not just a phone game, but it's cool. I am aggravated at the DLC and to some extent Final Fantasy, but not as much at Final Fantasy because Final Fantasy, it is a remake, but they did actually remake the game. They didn't just, it's not a remaster where they just cranked up the resolution and, we added, a feature and that's the game. And so that's not what it is. And so I will let Final Fantasy Remake Rebirth slide a little bit on that. But I'm pissed off about Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree.
There's no reason for that to be in here.
There's no reason.
Offense to everyone. It's so silly.
It's really silly. It's like, sorry, you go.
We need a best DLC. We need a best DLC like window. I'm looking through like all of the things here, and that for some reason that isn't on there. They have like best ongoing. They have a lot of things that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree could have been. But I really do hope it doesn't win just based on the sheer fact that like a lot of people didn't play that game. Like it's great, but there is a skill ceiling and like a grind ceiling and all of that is extremely high to get into that game.
Yeah, like something that I mentioned in the video that I posted was like, this is not a standalone DLC. Like some games, they do a standalone where you can buy it separately, or it's like you buy it, it's a different character, you make a new character, you do your own thing. But this is very much of like, no, you have to get the majority of the way through Elden Ring. You don't have to necessarily beat Elden Ring to get there, but you have to get the majority of the way through Elden Ring. And then the skill ceiling is crazy. It's way harder than regular Elden Ring. And it's, I get that there's a market out there. I'm not saying that it's bad by any means. I'm not saying that, but you are taking a slot away from other games who deserve to be nominated on this list. And why is there no DLC, category? And like, I understand that the Game Awards, they kind of ebb and flow with what the market does that year, which is like, all right, well, there wasn't a lot of shooters that came out this year. So now instead of calling it a shooter, we're just going to bundle everything into action game or, something like that. But it's like you could have bundled this into something else, or like if you wanted to put it just in the RPG category, just put it in the RPG category. I believe like somebody on our TikTok account said that like one of the Witcher DLCs won for best RPG, I think back in 2016 or something like that. And so I was like, sure, but that's best RPG. That's not game of the year. So yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's, I'm reminded, the very last thing you vote for is most anticipated, which is a very funny thing because it's just like, hey, you want to do some market research for us?
Yeah.
Tell us what you want to buy.
Right.
So all of this voting, all of these things, it's very much just, part of the industry. They want the buzz of having, I think honestly, they probably could have put something else on there, but the discussion around Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree being on there is probably what they want. It's probably like they're trying to drum up as much hype as possible. And you know what? Maybe there's a positive thing where people are like, well, Shadow of the Erdtree's on there. Maybe I should check that out. Or, you know what? Let me check out Metaphor Refantasio, because if that's good enough to be on there, then it's got to be, like, it might bring more attention. But I think ultimately it is just, like, kind of a stunt.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good theory of it being a stunt. But it just sucks that there has to be a stunt instead of recognizing other people who did good work this year. And
yeah,
I think that having Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree on the Game of the Year list, like, means that every other category that it's been nominated for is probably going to win, which kind of sucks for me. And like, I'm not saying it shouldn't win a category, but it's like, if it actually has if it wins, I'm gonna So
I remember Elden Ring came out, I believe, the same year as God of War Ragnarok. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2022, and it won.
I remember it did. It did great numbers then. I do remember being very upset, being like, man, God of War Ragnarok was such a better experience for me because I was like invested and cared about the people, and that's just the type of gamer I am, where I'm like, story is important, gameplay also has to be good, and one game had both, and Elden Ring had really, really great gameplay and exploration, and then like a hair string through two pieces of turd of story that you had to pull on to get out. It was nothing. It's awful.
So with that, Phil, is there another, if you could remove that from the Game of the Year list, which one would you place in its place?
Helldivers with a bullet. Helldivers in a New York Minute.
All right.
That really, I think, was the game that kind of set the world on fire this year. And it had its ups and downs, but I think its impact this year could not be overstated on just how many people were playing it and how we all were just invested. What about you? What do you think?
I hate to be unoriginal, but I completely agree. Like, I think I wouldn't award Helldivers Game of the Year, but I would have it nominated. And, people will say, like, well, it's only a multiplayer game and there's no story. It's like, we just talked about how Elden Ring doesn't have a story or any kind of understandable story by any means. And Balaltro does not have a story.
Doesn't have a story.
Like, what are we doing?
You know what? Helldivers' story is more congruent than Elden Ring's story, because in Helldivers you are getting like these updates. You are seeing this meta narrative of this war playing out. People are getting involved like as a community to save a children's hospital versus a weapons manufacturing depot. Like, there is a story, and I think it is more interesting and more it's Starship Troopers for sure, but I think it is better put together than what Elden Ring's got going on, where it's like, the archdemon blood mistress of Elagos is here, and you didn't pick up all the little clues about who she is and what she was doing.
Yeah.
we left a shell with a note in it in the opening area. And it said blood mistress. How did you not put this together? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it would be Helldivers for me. Yeah, I think it was just a phenomenon. I've never seen so many people rally behind a multiplayer game that wasn't already firmly established in the market. Like we see like online right now, you see like tons of Call of Duty Black Ops stuff going on, but it's a franchise that's been established for so long. It's like, that's going to happen. And so I really feel that Helldivers maybe not subverted expectations, but just like blew expectations out of the frickin' water.
Absolutely.
So I'd probably go with that. But there's I really enjoyed Space Marine as well. Like, I really enjoyed Dragon Age, but I don't know that it's good enough to be nominated. I really enjoy it personally. But like, I will acknowledge, like, and it's for me. It's not for everyone. So yeah.
Whereas the perfect game, Astrobot, is it Astrobot Adventures? I don't even remember what it's called.
It's just Astrobot.
Just Astrobot.
Yeah.
Who needs more?
It's
just Astrobot has something for everyone. It is so enjoyable, so well put together, so finely crafted with love, and it is also 20 hours and you get through the whole game.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, you're in, you're out.
Also, if you haven't played Astrobot recently, all 5 of the new speedrun levels are available in the game with new bots to collect. So check that out if you get a chance. All right. Well, we are running out of time. Any more thoughts on the Game Awards? I know we are going to do our own separate Game Awards, similarly to how we did things last year, which I think we had. I'll be honest. I was looking at our list last year. Last year was a good gaming year. Like that was
last year was a good gaming year.
There were some hitters on that list.
Oh yeah,
like 1 through 10, like really.
All solid. All could be a winner of their own year. This year, I think we'll have some competition, but maybe what it turned out is that it wasn't a year for me that I would like last year. Spider-Man 2, obviously our game of the year, but that was just surrounded by so many other great things that it was almost kind of tough. Where I was like, well, is this one gonna win this year? I mean, I know I'm in the tank for it, but is this good? So yeah, this has been a good year for games. I'm more excited for next year already.
Agreed.
What I'm really excited for is the game that I don't know that's going to come out. That's going to blow my socks off next year, because I'm sure there is something that someone's working on that is like has no advertising budget right now, but is just going to come out and like set the world on fire. So
right on. Yeah, that's a very optimistic and positive way to look on next year. That's great.
It's all I've got, Paul.
Yeah, I know. We just got to stay positive, man. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to episode 57 of the GGG Podcast. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, like we mentioned. If you're listening to the audio version, follow us on there on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts as well. We will be back next week. Almost Thanksgiving time, so maybe we'll do some. I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around a Thanksgiving themed episode, but I don't think we can do it. We're not a sitcom, so yeah.
We might have. We
will eat a turkey sandwich live on the show,
live on stream. Be a lot of chewing, so
yes.
Kind of like a mukbang for those of you who are into that.
Yeah, turkey sandwich ASMR. All right.
Excellent.
Peace out, everybody.